Oh, yeah. The sun's going down, big guy. I hope you're ready for a great show. Welcome. You get one salute, you get two salutes, you get the double salute. I'm your host, Chris, and you are watching the weekly Spinner Rack, where we are going to talk about the latest comic book news, as well as the latest comic books that came out. There's some really interesting stuff to discuss. You know what I especially loved was I was able to get a copy of Free Comic Book Day Energon Universe. This book was really something special. This latest graphic novel by Craig Thompson, pretty special as well. Welcome to the show. It is Cinco de Mayo, so I've got, just the best choice, the Baja Blast Mountain Dew Zero Sugar, and it's also known as Revenge of the Fifth, so I've got some paper that I could draw Darth Vader on. It's going to be a hell of a show. It's going to be a hell of a show. The only thing I can think of that would make it even better is to acknowledge all the amazing folks watching this live. Also grateful if you're watching this once it's archived and up on demand. But let's give some shout outs to some lovely folks here. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I got. So I'll consider this on your dime, Steve. Oh, some people were in here quite early. Thank you. Appreciate you. I would love to hear some stories about Free Comic Book Day later today. I did not have time to go to it, so that's why I was kind of excited that I even got sort of a leftover copy of a book that I really enjoyed. Yes, hello, comic troopers, comic tropers, whatever you want to call it. Hello. It must be Monday. Trying to get you guys through the work week. Started off with something kind of fun. This is awesome, seeing so many names, some new, some familiar. I'm glad you like the intro. Yeah, double salutes. You earned it. It's going to be a great show. Love that sick, nasty synthwave intro. Thank you. Trying to have some fun with it. Hey, West Coast Avengers. Dave did not like seeing this stuff in the background. Here, all this, my piles of comics. Dave runs a great channel where he sells comics, so he endeavors to have them in great condition. I just sort of stack them in piles. I don't really put them in boxes too often, so he did not love that, but that's okay. Hey, it's my sister. Awesome to have you here, Jeannie. Really, really nice. Happy Cinco de Cuatro, exactly. I've got an Arrested Development fan in there. Ginseng Roots. Yeah, I've really been enjoying the individual ones. This just came out in collected graphic novel format, though. From Malaysia, very cool. I guess I don't know any Malay phrases now that I think of it. Comic Tropicons, yes. Good, I amused you. All right, so with all that said, let me see. There's a little bit of business. I'll just let you guys know. I put out a new Comic Tropes episode on the other channel, Comic Tropes. I discussed the history of the Sentry, a very interesting comic book, both the hero and the story behind it. So that was kind of fun. I like Paul Jenkins' work. There were some more things that I sort of wanted to include in the episode, but you always try to make these decisions to make it focused, but seeing the comments, I realized that a lot of people were like, hey, did you realize the Sentry has similarities with Miracle Man? And it's like, yeah, I did. And I guess I thought it was so obvious that I didn't need to address it, but maybe I should have, because a lot of people think I forgot or didn't know, and that's okay. It doesn't exactly bother me, but it makes me think, well, obviously that was something people wanted me to discuss. So, whoops. But I'm proud of the episode. It seems to be doing okay. I hope that you guys consider checking it out. Yes, that was really, really nice. The guy, Nick, and hold on. All of a sudden, I'm blanking on names. I've always been bad at names. You guys know this. If you've watched the show, I'm always stumbling. Mr. Sunday Movies it's Mr. Sunday Movies and Wikipedia Brown. Oh my God, I'm totally forgetting their names right now. I feel James, right? It's got to be James. Hold on. Some people are starting to reply. James. Okay. I am sorry, James. James and Meso, yes. Anyway, I just want to say that, they've got a very successful thing going, and they've always been kind with the occasional shout out to my channel. They helped, plug when I had a Kickstarter campaign for the Vampirella cover. And I really appreciate those guys. They're really nice. I think that they're really funny and well informed, and I like their opinions. I think that they're very fair with the movies that come out. It's not that I always agree with them, but I always go like, okay, that's a good perspective. They always amuse me. And I also really admire their business model, where they've done everything they can to not put ads in their episodes. Because I also try not to do sort of just generic ads, but they really have something great going. Anyway, yeah, no, I don't actually. That was actually a sketch at the beginning of the Sentry episode. But anyway, so that was fun to talk about. But I think that that's all I've really got to plug. Tell you what, as long as there's enough time at the end tonight when I draw, maybe we can talk about the latest movies and TV shows in a non-spoilery way. But I think that the best thing to do right now is to bring up the news of the week. Actually, let me change this slightly. Yeah, I want to be a little bit bigger. And I want to think. Can I recreate it? I'm thinking. I'm sorry. Just amusing myself. We'll talk about that topic a little bit. That could this theoretically have been the last Free Comic Book Day? Well, there's technically a reason for it. But we'll talk about that. Before that, I'll just get into something else. Oh, you know what? I also just thought of another piece of news that I didn't include in this. But first, I'll talk about this. And then I'll bring up another piece of news that I didn't put in the document. But the question is, what are the next X-Men to get solo series? Because obviously the X line has been testing. I'll call that testing. I think that's the kindest way to say it. Different solo series or different team books, different spin-offs. These days, it seems like we're lucky if we get to between 5 to 10 issues. But X-Men editor Tom Brevoort has a Substack. And sorry, just sort of both took in a big gasp of air and then tried to clear my throat at the same time. I don't know what that sound was, but it was probably something the Kingpin would make as a bit of a nervous twitch. Vanessa, did you know that I need to do the news of the week? Tom Brevoort has a Substack, and he talks about the behind-the-scenes stuff, like up to the minute of what's going on behind the scenes at Marvel, and he answers a lot of reader questions in this case. And a bunch of people were asking about potential X-Men spin-offs. So, for instance, a guy named Joe West said, wait a minute, isn't Joe West the name of Iris West's dad in the comics, The Flash? I think he is. Joe West. I think so. Anyway, Joe West asked about Dani Moonstar, and Brevoort responded, well, as you say, Joe, she's in Magic at the moment, but this possibility has been leaning a little bit more likely in recent months, so stay tuned. I always like Dani Moonstar because I'm a big fan of New Mutants. That just like hit at the right time for me. She was the co-leader of the team, good power set, good background. I'd be willing to try a book like that with the right creative team. Joel Zorba asked about Cyclops, and Tom replied, I think there's a better than 0 chance of this happening, Joel. I don't know if that really sounds like super likely. Sat asked if the upcoming Emma Frost limited series, with covers by friend of the show David Nakayama, asked if that limited series could become an ongoing. And to that, Tom answered, that Emma Frost limited series is designed to simply be a limited series, Sat. But That doesn't mean that we might not do a similar project with the character set in the present at some point, because this upcoming Emma Frost White Queen series is set back in her Hellfire Club days when she was on Bad Guy. So yeah, couple things there for potential upcoming series. But what I forgot to put in the news, I just realized is, and this isn't a spoiler, but the Thunderbolts movie came out. Did you notice that a new Marvel movie came out? You're like watching a YouTube comic book show, and what, a new Marvel movie? That I missed it. So Thunderbolts came out. I always find it interesting. I think a bunch of people super into comics do, where when these adaptations come, who gets credited at the end, you know? So they have credits for, you know, who created Winter Soldier and Yelena Belova. Actually, Yelena debuted in a Paul Jenkins comic. Speaking of the Century, Yelena debuted in an issue of Inhumans originally. Anyway, they've got a bunch of credits there. One person spoke up who had written 2 different Thunderbolts runs and wasn't in there, and it was Jim Zub, another friend of the show, and I love Jim. By the way, I'll talk about one of his books that came out for Free Comic Book Day, Conan. Really good. And he was just like, I wasn't credited. And you go like, okay, well, you know, did Thunderbolts really adapt any specific comics? No, not really, to be honest. However, I would say that it's notable that Jim Zub was the first person to put Winter Soldier on a Thunderbolts team. I'd say that warrants a credit. I feel like that's very stingy. I'd feel like that's very stingy of Marvel and Disney not to credit creators that do things like that. I thought that the credits for the comics was actually quite brief, considering all the different places both the characters and the teams that are used in the movie came from. So anyway, you know, I don't think Jim was making a huge deal about it. He was just sort of commenting like, too bad, didn't get credited. He wasn't surprised because he feels like he probably would have been given a heads up if he was. But yeah, I think I think that's enough of a contribution, including a specific member on, like, you know, a team that's, you know, 5, 6, 7 people. I think that warrants a credit. I don't know. You know, you're not getting paid much more, if anything, unless you actually sort of have a stake in the character's creation, but you'd think you could at least get a credit. That's just my thought. Well, potentially. We're going to talk about that as a topic towards the end of the news. Daniel Way wasn't thanked either. Lots of Thunderbolts creators weren't. That's what I was sort of noticing. And I was like, okay, they didn't adapt a specific Thunderbolts story arc per se, but I think any elements that they use should get a credit. That's my take. I don't think that that's controversial either. So, little piece of news that I forgot to include in the document. And with that said, I'll bring back up my document because I've got some more to talk about. There we go. We'll go over to some DC stuff. But I do, by the way, I do recommend Thunderbolts. I think it's pretty darn good. I think it's pretty darn good. Trying to think. Maybe even out of this phase, maybe my second favorite after Guardians of the Galaxy. I'd have to think it through, like, of everything that was in this phase, but I'll just real quick, like, yeah, let me think about that a little bit more instead of going into this news item. Let me think. What were there, 6 movies? Because there's Thunderbolts, Deadpool and Wolverine, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, The Marvels, Ant-Man, Quantumania, and one other that I'm not thinking of right now. What else am I not thinking of? There was another one in this phase. Oh, cool. I'll have to talk to you soon about it, Jeannie. I'm trying to think of all the movies that were in the last phase. Do they have to pay the creators if they get credited? I don't think so. I think EJ, if you get credited as a creator with a specific work arrangement, for instance, Rob Liefeld has a specific arrangement for creating Deadpool or Cable. So it's a more recent thing. You know, like people that created, say, Wolverine probably didn't get paid extra, but more recent did. Oh, right. Captain America. Thank you, Jeannie. Okay, Captain America. So I think that those were the 6 movies. And if I'm just going to real quick rank them, I would put Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as number 1 out of this phase. I think that that's a pretty uncontroversial decision. I would put Thunderbolts in number 2. I would actually put Thunderbolts in the number 2 position. Then the Marvels. I maybe that part is like a surprise because I actually thought the Marvels was really, really good. I enjoyed the heck out of it. It didn't perform that great. I liked it though. And then I'd put Deadpool and Wolverine right under that. And you're like, well, why isn't that higher? It was fun. I liked it. It was very funny a lot of the time, but it wasn't a big story in a way. So anyway, I'd put that number 4, and then I'd probably do Ant-Man as number 5 and Captain America as number 6. But that doesn't mean that I disliked these. You know, that's just my list. That's just my list. So let's see. I heard Denny O'Neil got paid for Ironmonger when he showed up in the first Iron Man. Every deal for every character is very different. But I still think that if you created a storyline, something like that, you should get a credit in the movie. Let's see. Why don't you use the camera that you use for Comic Tropes After Dark? It has to be a better camera. Different setups. It would be a huge hassle to connect the camera with my setup in the room upstairs with what I've got down here where I can draw and edit. So I've got 2 areas that I can work. That's a fair question. The area that I record in is basically, it's pretty small. It may look sizable, but it's a set. It's essentially a set. And I've got lighting and a camera kind of locked in for the most part. I can move it around if I need to and disconnect it if I need to, but it would be a big hassle to like get it back into the right position every single like week. It would be a nightmare. And I've got a separate area that I edit at with a nice computer, and that's where I've decided to do the live streams. So hopefully that makes sense. By the way, since EJ is here, because EJ had a question a second ago, I do want to let you guys know this week is the week that his new comic book comes out. EJ's been somebody that I've known a really long time. I think he's just not only an incredibly talented artist, but a really kind person. We've known each other online a very long time. I got to meet him only once so far. But Blood and Thunder through Skybound. So it's an Image book. Blood and Thunder does come out this Wednesday, and I definitely want to plug that. Image was kind enough to send me an advance copy, and I liked it a lot. So I just wanted to plug that. All right. Seems like I'm going pretty slow and getting through the news, aren't I? Let's get back to the news. Jax got the license for the Sonic Justice League of America figures. I know everybody was excited. Whatever. No, it's cute. And it apparently did well. Jax Pacific is some sort of a action figure toy manufacturer. I'm really not an expert on that stuff. Sorry. They signed a licensing agreement with Sega and Warner Brothers, so it's kind of a big deal, to bring new action figures based on the recent Sonic Justice League of America crossover comics. The new line is apparently going to feature Sonic, Tails, Shadow, and Justice League favorites Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Items are going to include articulated plastic action figures, vehicles, and plushes. And then they scheduled it for this fall. That's when it's going to come out. And they put out a little animated teaser. It's only about like 30 seconds, but it's got Sonic in Batman gear. So I assume that would be sort of the figures that they're releasing is, these characters wearing actual DC Comics clothes. I don't know. No Rogue. Isn't Rogue an X-Man, or is Rogue also the name of a Sonic character? I don't know. I'm guessing at that. Finally, the Knuckles Snowflame crossover the public has been waiting for. Snowflame was a short-lived villain in DC Comics who was powered by cocaine. The Sergeant Rock movie has been scrapped. I've got some Hollywood news for comics for the next few items. The Wrap, which is an industry publication for movies, they broke the news that the Sergeant Rock movie, which was going to be directed by Luca Guadagnino and written by his challengers and queer writer Justin Kuritzkis, it's no longer moving forward at DC. They came close because they got like a writer, a director, and they were about to get a star. But according to the article, in order to move forward with the movie, they had a window. And they had to get the filming started this summer. It has a lot of outdoor scenes, the places that they were going to use. It would have to be filmed in summer as compared to a different season. If they couldn't get like the movie started by this summer, by that window, they had to just move on with other projects. They had to move their resources. And I guess not everybody that was going to be involved was going to be available for that window. That was pretty soon. So it's been scrapped completely. Colin Farrell had been in talks to star. The budget seemed pretty reasonable for, a comic book adaptation. $70 million. These days, that's considered sort of like a mid-budget. But it just never seemed to quite come together, obviously. No, you don't need to see my home. It's not that interesting. Just join the stream to this terrible news. Sergeant Rock, my beloved, you will be missed even though we never saw you. Sergeant Rock has a long history of trying to get adapted. It doesn't sound like it would be the most complex comic to adapt since it's grounded in the real world. At one point, Arnold Schwarzenegger was attached. At one point, Bruce Willis was attached. And this was when they were in their prime. But it's just never happened. Someday it will have to, but not yet. I mean, at this rate, Marvel's going to find a way to beat them with, like a Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos adaptation. Was Guy Ritchie attached to it at one point? I didn't know about that. Okay. Haunted Tank is cool. There's a lot of World War II characters that DC has because they could roll in things like Blackhawks, Unknown Soldier. They've got actually a bunch of sort of World War II stuff that they could sort of have cameos from other creations. But Sergeant Rock is their best known, I think. Yeah. Killdozer. Killdozer was a comic and a TV movie, I think. Moving on. Is a Bollywood star going to join the MCU? This may not sound like the biggest news to people here in the United States, but trust me, if this happened, it would many, many millions of people would be very excited. So Shah Rukh Khan is easily one of the biggest Bollywood stars out there. He's huge. He's known to his fans as just his initials, SRK, or King Khan, because of what a big powerhouse he is at the box office as an Indian star. In the last few weeks, there's been a lot of rumors that he's in talks to star in a future Marvel project. Oh, that's actually a really good idea. GI Robot would be cool. Nice to see you, Stepan. That would be cool. Let's see. So several Marvel actors, by the way, have said that they love Khan's work. Benedict Cumberbatch, Anthony Mackie, Iman Vellani. They're all like huge fans of him. They'd love to work with this guy. It would definitely bring in a lot of butts to seats. Earlier this week, some fans thought that they saw him visiting the Avengers Doomsday set. It's like somebody from behind going into a door. They've started filming that movie, so there's lots of speculation. There's no confirmations. I don't think that that's super likely. But yeah, that's all I have. Don't be surprised. And I know this is a rumor, but it's a rumor with a humongous star. That's all. I have a Pakistani friend who's enormously excited for this news. SRK is a major A-list names to billions. Exactly. Loved G.I. Robot when he appeared in Creature Commandos. It was a good take on the character. Yeah. They should do Unknown Soldier. Jeremy Renner shared how he was insulted over a Hawkeye offer. And as soon as I explain this to you guys, I think you're going to agree with him. It's a pretty crazy thing. So Renner was interviewed by High Performance, and he revealed that Marvel actually approached him to do a season 2 of Hawkeye, and he felt like completely insulted by their offer. You saw the interview? Renner said, quote, "They asked me to do season 2 and they offered me half the money. I'm like, well, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money and 8 months of my time, essentially, to do it for half the amount." I'm like, I'm sorry. Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over? Maybe that's why you want to pay me half of what I made on the first season. If they were planning on using him as much, that's not awesome. That's pretty weird. Hey, it's my buddy Ben. I've known Ben like a long time. On artist message boards, we met back in I think the late 90s, and he's got a great channel under this name where he builds a lot of original Lego sets, and he's really talented at like the engineering and construction of that stuff. If you're into Lego, good artist. So yeah, that sounds wild. To be clear, though, he did elaborate later in the interview that he wasn't like mad at, specifically Marvel or Disney, just that like it wasn't a good offer. He says like, I'd still play the character. It's not like he just felt that like, the accountants that like determined what they would offer him, he just didn't like the offer, but he just felt the need to stand up for himself. Good for him, good for him. Let's see. Maybe this will get him to paid. Maybe this will get him to get paid interest in season 2. Yes, the $2 will. I'll pass that on the next time Jeremy and I are hanging out. I'll say, hey, Jer Bear, I know you're on the fence about this Hawkeye season 2. What do you say to visits from George Washington maybe sweeten the pot? And he goes, eats the $2, does Hawkeye season 2, and we get what we want. It does seem bonkers. It's like, do you want him or not? I mean, he's been with, the MCU since phase 1. So it does, though, show that there's obviously Marvel's giving some thought to doing more with Hawkeye. At this point, I'm like, come on. Like, Haley Steinfeld is a major actress. She was incredible in Sinners. How about we get her as Hawkeye into some sort of new team movie? Put her on an Avengers team or Young Avengers, Dark Avengers. I don't care. Just put her on something. Get her in the movies. Don't wait. Like, I can't believe that they've got actors like who was going to play Blade? He played Cottonmouth on the Luke Cage show. Who am I thinking of? Mahershala Ali. They've got like Mahershala Ali. They've got Oscar Isaac. They've got these like huge names signed, and they can't move forward with a project for them. It's crazy. It's crazy. Oh yes, I knew what you meant, but thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it, Steve. Thank you. Totally agree. Sinners is incredible. I saw the funniest meme this week. It's got they said that it's from, what do you call it? Avengers Kang Dynasty. Because originally Avengers Kang Dynasty was scheduled to be the movie that came out this past weekend. And it's got Paul Rudd as Ant-Man going, Sinners, I need you to distract Kang, or something like that. Or Sinners, I need you to distract Dr. Doom. As though they're going to cross over with the Sinners movies. I love that. I don't know, the dog that they used in season 1. moving forward. I liked it too. It was great. It was funny and cool. Kate Bishop was a great addition and interesting. It was probably the best take on Hawkeye yet, having him so sort of like, beaten down and down to earth. And I don't know, the villain that they used was great. It was a lot of good stuff to it. It was a good show. It was a good Marvel show. And honestly, there was news this week that when Bob Chapek became the president of Disney, he's since been replaced with Bob Iger, and who's turning things around. But Bob Chapek was just all about like, look, Marvel is doing good. I want double the amount of movies. I want 4 Marvel movies a year, and I want like Marvel shows on Disney Plus like every quarter. And Kevin Feige was like, it's too much. It literally, like, I love this stuff. It's too much. It's to connect it all. And you know what? Sure enough, like Feige was stretched thin and quality dipped. As soon as Iger came in, he said, no, we'll do 2 movies a year. Maybe we'll do a few shows. But I think an example of like how spread thin they are is that Ironheart is about to drop on Disney Plus next month. And has anybody even seen a commercial for it? Like, there is no promotion for it. That thing is going to just land to no response at all because it hasn't been promoted in any way. It's just crazy. So I'm glad to see that, like, they're backing off a little bit. And Thunderbolts was the first movie with Iger back as president. So it seems like there is a little bit more attention to detail, a little bit more care put into the project, in my opinion. Another Hollywood thing, Stillwater, which is a pretty cool comic. I remember talking about it on this show back when it was coming out. It's getting an Amazon Prime adaptation. So there was a bidding war, and Amazon ended up winning the rights to adapt Stillwater, which is a book by Chip Zdarsky and Ramon Perez. Here's the gist of it, if you don't know. There's this ex-convict, Daniel West, and he receives a letter promising answers about his past and everything. Seems to be from his mom, as well as a substantial inheritance, vague, in this small town of Stillwater. So he goes and he discovers this community where no one ages, no one ever dies, but also you can't leave. You can't leave. So, yeah, it's pretty creepy. It's sort of like, what are you willing to give up for eternal life? And is it really worth it? So Amazon actually picked up Stillwater for a full series order. They didn't just order, say, like a pilot or a script. They won this bidding war and they said, yep, we're just ordering it straight to series. And it comes from Greg Berlanti, who you might know from shows like, all the Arrowverse shows, Flash, Arrow, as well as the Netflix show You, which I understand is a hit. I haven't seen that one, though. So he's adapting it. Skybound is the publisher of the book. So Skybound is also producers. So, like, Robert Kirkman is one of the producers on it. I hope that they are able to do it. It's a cool, creepy story. Stillwater runs deep. Chip Hollywood Zdarsky. That's him. I did see the trailer for Revival. It looks pretty quirky, and I mean that in the best possible sense. I hope it's good. I'm curious. Berlanti was a writer on Dawson's Creek. Well, I guess everybody comes from somewhere. I did not know that, or I didn't remember that anyway. The Eternaut landed on Netflix, and it's doing well. It's doing real well. So this is a comic book adaptation, if you don't know. I've got an episode about it, about Eternaut, that I made pretty early on in my YouTube journey on the Comic Tropes channel. Really, really amazing comic book that I love. So it's really cool to see that it got a adaptation. So April 30th, it launched, And it is based on the 1957 comic by writer Hector Herman Esterheld and illustrator Francisco Solano Lopez. It's good. I've watched just the first episode, but it's very cool. It's updated to today, but it's very authentic so far to the characters and the story. If you don't know what it is, just in the broadest terms possible, because I don't want to spoil, there are twists to it all, but it's a post-apocalyptic show. It's a sci-fi show. The main character is a middle-aged guy named Juan Salvo. He and his friends are just trying to survive this very strange and mysterious, apocalypse that happens. We're not talking, bombs dropping or anything, but something kills you if you step outside. And so like all the communication, anything electronic stops working. It cuts you off from like everything and makes you very paranoid about who you can trust and how to figure out what's going on. It's a great mystery to the whole thing. And it gets progressively weirder. I will say that. It gets progressively more sci-fi, but it starts off very, very grounded and scary. It's really cool. Thanks again for the super chat, Steve. You're the best. I agree. Hopefully Fantagraphics does reprint this. It's almost one of my prize comics these days just because they haven't reprinted it. You can buy used copies if you look around, but you might have to pay a little bit more than cover price. And it is a pretty thick book released in hardcover, so it's not an inexpensive book, but you can get the whole story all at once. And it is a whole story with a beginning, middle, and an end. So I do recommend it quite a bit, to be honest. The show reached number 2 on Netflix's top 10. I don't know if it has reached number 1, but it reached at least number 2 when I last checked. And it has 94% positive reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, 95% by the audience. That's correct. Yes, there was a sort of a reboot later on. And Alberto Breccia, great artist, drew it in a very different style than what he used to do. It was more like a sort of Sienkiewicz impressionistic style. Very interesting. But the original is still my favorite. They are apparently reprinting it later this year. That makes sense. And Netflix has already picked it up for a second season. That's just because it's a big story. So you couldn't do it in just 6 episodes. So anyway, I do recommend it. And hopefully you will consider watching my video about the comic, because it's not necessarily a one-to-one adaptation, because the original was set in 57 and now it's 2026. That's a long time ago. But so it depends how, maybe you don't want to get spoiled at all watching a show, and I get that. But the story behind the comic is also something I get into in my episode. And oh my God, the history of it. If you know any Argentine history in the 50s into the 60s and 70s, things get dramatic. There's a lot to talk about that happened with the creators and with the regime at the time. So I do recommend the show, though. I do, from what I've seen. Yeah, it's a very different post-apocalyptic, because it isn't like you're going out into a world like in The Last of Us that's been taken over by vegetation, or a zombie movie where everything is just sort of burned and hollowed out. It's really interesting. Yeah, he is. The Eternaut is very, very important to Argentine culture and history. IDW shared some Shredder details. And by the way, look at that gorgeous cover. That's a variant by kind of a regular these days in the chat, Stefan. So let's take a look at what details we learned. IDW has confirmed that TMNT Shredder will launch on August 13th. The new series is going to be written by Dan Waters. Everybody's telling me that the book I have to read by him is Batman Dark Patterns. I haven't read it. Everybody's saying that it's fantastic. Art is by Spider-Man City at War artist Michel Bandini. And I guess the Shredder actually has a new suit of armor for this that's been designed by Ninja Turtles artist, fan favorite Mateus Santaluco. It's a cool looking armor. It's not radically different. Don't worry. It's not like they, I don't know, put him in like orange plaid jumpsuit, like trousers or something like that. Don't worry. Yeah, Shredder's had his mask off in the comics before. It's interesting that he's presented as a little older here, but he's gone through a lot of stuff in the regular comics, including dying and having been reborn. So, yeah. People are saying Dark Patterns is something special. The comic is going to feature Shredder returning to New York City looking for revenge. Revenge against the Foot Clan that he's not a part of. Looking for a former protege that maybe did him wrong. And of course, he's probably going to be mad at the Turtles, if I had to guess. Yeah. The new costume is David S. Pumpkin's Halloween suit. No, he did not. Anyway, they've done some interesting things with Shredder, but I don't think he's ever had an ongoing series before. I think that this is intended to be an ongoing series. Take him in some new directions. He hasn't really been the primary antagonist in the comics for a little while. So more than a little while. So it's a good time to start exploring who he is. Great villain, great design, good motivation. Like, it's crazy to think how he's pretty iconic, but if you go back to 1983, he was the villain in that first issue. Great villain. They killed him off at the end of the first issue. So it's kind of amazing that he's been able to come back thanks to sort of reboots and re-envisionings and stuff. David Shredder Pumpkins. Could be fun. But yeah, there's a bunch of variant covers. Stepan Sajic. I'm still not sure how I pronounce your name, sir. I got to figure that out. I'm a jerk. I'm a jerk. So I'll go over to something positive. Godzilla has raised money for charity, which, in my opinion, Godzilla owes it to the world. He's caused a lot of damage. The least he could do is give a little bit back to charity. Just a little bit. Come on, Godzilla. Maybe he'll become Goodzilla. So Godzilla versus America Los Angeles has raised $40,000 that will go to helping comic shops and bookstores that were impacted by the recent LA wildfires. IDW donated all the profits from the book to the Bink Foundation, and that's a nonprofit that's dedicated to helping bookstores and comic book shop employees, owners, stuff like that when there are emergencies, unforeseen emergencies. So nice. I think that's a really cool decision to give back like that. I didn't know that Godzilla was a billionaire. That's news to me. Wow. Yeah, Godzilla now. Just talked about the Eternaut. Yep. Moving on. Jenny Blake has joined DC Pride 2025. Specifically, DC announced that they have added her to the DC Pride anthology with an original story called Master Planner by writer Jenny Blake and artist Sarah Solar. So why am I talking about this instead of any of the other creators in the anthology? Well, because this is a autobiographical story, similar to previous Pride stories we've had by Kevin Conroy, Phil Jimenez. This is going to be an autobiographical story by Black Lightning creator Jenny Blake, also known as Tony Isabella. Still uses their old professional work name. Blake had a quote, "When I came out as transgender, the comics community was overwhelmingly loving and supportive. Being asked to contribute to this anthology was unexpected and so affirming." Just an interesting story. I hear stories of, younger trans people, teenagers and 20-somethings discovering it, but not so much a person so much later in life, you know? I'm curious about this story. I'm definitely curious how Jenny came to this realization about themselves. I guess I didn't have anything else, but that story makes me curious. And I will say that like the Kevin Conroy autobiographical story was really good as far as previous Pride stories go. Yeah. Yes, yes, did save us from the brown bomber. Terrible, terrible idea DC had for it was going to be their first comic book starring a black superhero, like as the title hero. They had an idea for the brown bomber, which was going to be a white racist, had something like Shazam powers to turn into a superhero, but turned into a black guy, and that would slowly, change his heart. And Jenny was like, you know what? I think we can do better. How about just a black guy that's a superhero? Black Lightning. So that's really cool. Hope it's a good story. A manga that I really, really liked has been awarded a really nice prize. The first volume of Teo Matsumoto's Tokyo These Days won the Los Angeles Times Book Prize for the graphic novel comics category this past weekend. This is a manga that was recommended to me by Daniel Warren Johnson, of all people. And so I put it on a wish list. My nephew got it for me for my birthday last summer. It's really cool. It's really cool. It's fictional, but based strongly on real life stuff that Matsumoto experienced. Here's a summary, just to give you an idea of it. There's 3 volumes of it, but this first one is the one that won the award this week. On his final day as an editor, Shiozawa takes a train he's ridden hundreds of times to impart some last advice to a manga creator whose work he used to edit. Later, he's drawn to return to a bookshop at the request of a junior editor who wants his help dealing with an incorrigible manga creator who used to be edited by Shiozawa and now refuses to work with anyone else. For Shiozawa, Tokyo These Days is full of memory and is cocooned in the inescapable bonds among manga creators, their editors, art, and life itself. So yeah, it's about a manga editor who's retiring and all the sort of memories and connections he has with manga and the city itself. Very cool. Very cool. Let's see. Teo Matsumoto is honestly one of the best creators working right now. Wow. Very cool. Yeah. Charming is a decent phrase for it. It's really good. It's interesting. That's a bummer. I'm sorry to hear that you lost your store and that they went out of business. That's terrible. It is. It's cool. Trust me. It's good. All right. Moving forward. Oh, darn. Hold on. Let me edit this since this is not. I want to format this right. Give me 2 seconds. Just got to jump to a page and make an edit because it wasn't looking right. Bring to front. Okay. There. Okay. Just needed to make an edit because I wanted to be respectful. So an artist that I really liked and grew up with in large part passed away. And so I wanted to pay a bit of tribute to all of his accomplishments. I'm talking about Jackson Guice, also frequently credited as Butch. I guess his friends and family called him Butch. But he passed away this week at the age of 63. Haven't heard a specific reason why, although I know he's had some like health issues lately. I thought that it was pneumonia, but maybe it was something more serious. I don't know. Butch broke into comics in the early 80s. Books like ROM and Micronauts was definitely the big one that like caught people's attention. Some of his many accomplishments. So this is not meant to be comprehensive. This is just a list of what I consider a lot of big things, but there's a lot of great work out there. Launched X Factor and co-created Apocalypse. Pretty lasting villain. Was the artist on the post-crisis relaunch of The Flash. had an acclaimed run on Doctor Strange. That actually got into the news at the time because he did a cover that famously referenced an image of singer Amy Grant in the background, and Amy Grant sued Marvel because she didn't want to be associated with the occult, and they settled out of court. He drew Action Comics, Superman during the Death of Superman era, like leading up to that, drew Doomsday and all that big stuff. Huge. Worked for Valiant in the 90s, which Valiant was massive in the early 90s. Books like Eternal Warrior, he was the artist on. He did the DC Marvel crossover book All Access. Co-created Resurrection Man at DC, which is currently getting a reboot by Ram V. Co-created and drew Ruse at CrossGen, Dear Departed CrossGen. And one of the artists on Brubaker's pretty influential and acclaimed Captain America run. So those are just some of the great things that Butch Guice drew. I'll miss seeing his artwork. Always had a grounded, realistic style. You know, it wasn't static or anything. It just wasn't like, you know, exaggerated or cartoony. It was like very like in the sort of Neil Adams mold of like, you know, going for realism. And it was really, really nice. Yeah. 63 just seems way too young to me. So that's nice. That's nice. Loved him on Resurrection Man. Loved his art on New Mutants and Superman. X Factor was among the first comics I collected. Yep. Did Iron Man. That's right. With Bob Layton. That was another important one. So pretty cool. Wasn't Guice heavily involved with the Wally West era of The Flash? Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. But I think that's a long list of accomplishments. A lot of things he co-created. A lot of important runs that people will continue to come back to. Yep. That's another one. Yep. He did the Deathlock mini in the early 90s. Yeah. I remember it. Mm-hmm. It's pretty important. Yeah, it's pretty important. Hey, John, nice to see you here. His Instagram was a great resource for comic craft knowledge. That's nice to hear. That I didn't know about. Daniel liked his Eternal Warrior run. Eternal Warrior. Singular, yeah. Yeah. Just wanted to take a moment for us to remember a great artist. And, you know, it's sad. The only thing I can take away is, you know, just fans of his work is that this is a lot of great comics that we still get to read. And that's nice. That is nice. So never truly forgotten. The Energon universe is launching something called the Quintesson War. What would that be? Did an Invaders series with Chip Zdarsky. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. That's interesting. Well, let's talk about the Quintesson War real quick. Very different. The Energon universe title Void Rivals has been building up that the alien Quintessons, which are from Transformers cartoons, they created a godlike being called Goliant. We haven't seen exactly what he is, but we know that the whole reason that that void in Void Rivals held within a sacred ring is really a trap for Goliant. It's this godlike being, super powerful. And the Quintessons are apparently getting close to being able to get him back. It's going to be a big factor in one of their first big event books in the shared Energon universe. This week's Free Comic Book Day book for the Energon universe, which I'll talk about in a little bit, it included a story about the Quintessons, and it ended saying that the Quintesson War is coming in issue 25 of Void Rivals. That issue is scheduled for November. It does look a little bit like Batman in space or something. Just, you know, you say Batman, I'll be honest, the first thing I thought of was, what was the sort of villain in Fantasia, that big demon? I just remember this big demon with horns, little horns in Fantasia, but I can't remember his name now. You guys know I'm bad at names. I'm sure it's like sort of like a stage in getting to Unicron. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Chernobog. That's what I was thinking. Thanks, Owen. Yep, I was thinking Chernobog. Thank you, Bambino. Could be fun. The heavy metal magazine reboot has offended some of its Kickstarter backers, but they're trying to make it right. So let's talk about that real quick. Heavy Metal Magazine recently had a crowdfunding campaign. I remember talking about both that one as well as the Metal Hurlant campaign. This week, supporters on social media were expressing a lot of anger because apparently this comic is going to hit comic book store shelves before the supporters of the Kickstarter that made it happen. Oops, that's not great. That's not great. You know, kind of the promise of supporting a book like this is that you get it first. You made it happen. But actually, the people that will get it first are just anybody that wants to pick it up off a shelf in a comic book shop. Yeah, you can see why they'd be mad. In fact, Heavy Metal has been addressing it, and they've called them the Angry Mob. That's what they've named them, like literally the Angry Mob. The campaign acknowledged and apologized on May 1st, and then on the 2nd, they posted another update with their offer on several things to do to make it right to the campaign people. So, for instance, the supporters will get a free copy of issue 2 with a special variant cover just for them. They're going to get a voucher that they can use to buy merchandise from their website. And if they want to subscribe to an annual subscription, they can get $20 off. They also said that they try to think up other things to make it right. So they're not ignoring it. They're not, you know, just they acknowledged it right away. I'm going to give them credit for that. And they've offered some sort of make good items. And they said, look, it was never our intention. Basically, it all had to do with scheduling and backup. Like they weren't prepared for how big the campaign was and what the steps were going to be of how long it was going to take to schedule the fulfillment of it. So they made a mistake. I will say that looking at their updates, it seemed like the vast majority of replies from campaign supporters felt that they were doing the right thing and satisfying them. So they got angry, and I think justifiably so at first, but at least the campaign acknowledged that they made a mistake and have done something to try to rectify it. And it seemed to me, from just reading the comments, that most people were satisfied with that. That's an interesting question. Any idea why DC keeps shelving Glorious Godfrey? Was there a specific comic that was solicited at some point? Otherwise, you know, I don't know. You know, Darkseid has a lot of different minions. Last time I remember Glorious Godfrey being used prominently was in the post-crisis Superman era by John Byrne. You're right. It's been a long time. Let's see. I feel like if I'd backed it, I wouldn't mind getting the book a little bit later as long as I got it. I would agree I wouldn't mind getting it later, but I would be frustrated to know that anybody could get it before me. You know, that would be a little annoying. I backed it and wasn't even aware. I'm happy with their extras. Well, there you go. There you go. I agree. There's a lot you could do with Glorious Godfrey. For folks that don't know, Glorious Godfrey basically has the power to mesmerize, or not quite hypnotize, but heavily influence people with his voice. So, you know, if he wanted to be some sort of a podcast grifter selling Bitcoin type stuff or NFTs, that would be very much in line with who Glorious Godfrey is. So there is stuff that they could do. It's an interesting question. I agree. They could do a lot with him. I don't know why. I have no good answer. You're right. He's an NPR correspondent? Maybe. Yeah, they could use Funky Flashman too, but I think Funky's time is come and gone, basically. Let's move forward. What other news did I have? Vault and Breakneck Comics have partnered, but people are probably like, who's Breakneck Comics? You don't need to know who they are. They haven't existed before this announcement. I'll explain. Vault announced a partnership with an author, Jeremy Robinson, who has named his imprint Breakneck Comics. So it's really Vault and Jeremy Robinson have announced a partnership, but their press release say it's Vault and Breakneck Comics. Robinson is a popular author. I'll be honest, I was not aware of him before today, but he has a bunch of #1 things on Audible and the New York Times bestseller list. He's written over 100 novels. I'm like, what? 100? Where'd this young guy come from? Let me pause to acknowledge these super chats. This is awesome. The Glorious Experience with G. Gordon Godfrey. Dude, if DC used Glorious Godfrey, they should absolutely include like sort of a QR code or something to a fake podcast and get like some sort of good name voice actor to be Glorious Godfrey. That would be awesome. That would be a slam dunk. Joe Dent, thank you. Can anyone answer why Guice was never known as Butch after a point? I have no idea. I've never seen an article explaining it. Maybe he wanted to just be known as his professional name at a certain point, or his real name, like for his professional work, and just Butch to his friends and family. But that's just me wildly guessing. I don't have an actual answer. I've been curious about that. I've never seen anything about it. With 100 books, by the way, going back to this news story, with over 100 novels, I'm like, is this guy like using ChatGPT to write his novels? I'm not trying to accuse him of anything, but I'm like, how does he do this? Or is this something like, Hardy Boys, where like there was one author, but like 5 or 6 different people writing the books? I just don't get it. Like that's an insane amount of, maybe he's just incredibly hardworking and prolific. I really have no idea. But Vault says Robinson will launch 4 new series with them next year, like writing them in addition to his novels. What? Oh, okay. I mean, this book that I looked at was like, okay, that's a giant kaiju. That's cool. Yes, exactly. He writes at breakneck speed. That's why his comics imprint is Breakneck Comics. I just don't know how he's doing it. But it's happening. And obviously somebody's buying his stuff because he's got a bunch of #1 hits. Let me wrap up with 2 news stories about Diamond. I know we've been talking about them a lot. We're basically dealing with the fallout of everything. So last Wednesday, Diamond announced that the bankruptcy court approved a combined bid by Universal Distribution and Ad Populum to acquire their assets. That's who's actually officially buying their assets. Universal is a distributor from Canada, and they're going to get Alliance Game Distributors. That's the board and tabletop game distribution wing of Diamond. Ad Populum, they're like a toy manufacturer. They own Nika, WizKids, stuff like that. They're acquiring the assets of Diamond Comic Distributors, Diamond Book Distributors, Diamond Select Toys and Collectibles, that makes sense, Collectible Grading Authority, and other related assets, like the name Free Comic Book Day. Diamond UK remains separate from all that sales. So that's how that's going. That's who is officially buying things. It was approved by the courts, so it's moving forward. But that does bring up, like, what happened to that original bid by a group called Alliance Entertainment? That's the next part of this news story. Let me just acknowledge this generous super chat here. Thank you. The Glorious Experience should be modeled after the Joe Rogan show. That makes sense. He's one of the most popular podcasters. Every episode has a different villain co-host, like Lex, Hugo Strange, Grodd, etc. Well, at first that seems funny, but then you think, like, that could be a thing where he's trying to sort of rehabilitate some of these villains' images to the public, like make them look good and sort of change the public perception on some of these characters. It might be hard with Gorilla Grodd, but Hugo Strange, Lex Luthor, other guys that are just sort of more down to earth. That would be an interesting thing, like Black Manta. I don't know. That's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Let me wrap up this bit of Diamond news. So, what happened with Alliance? Alliance is now suing Diamond specifically for fraud and deception. And I went and I read the complaint, I think it's called, and it is bad. It is so bad for Diamond, folks. It is so bad. Let me go over this very high level. And if you want to know more, you're going to have to like talk to either a lawyer or read the brief yourself. Let me give credit to a guy named Brett Schenker at Graphic Policy, because he's, as far as I can tell, the first one to break this news last week that Alliance Entertainment, who almost bought Diamond, remember, won, then somehow Diamond was going to go with the backup bidder, and then Alliance sued to get the rights to buy them. They won, and then they decided not to buy. This is why. This is going to be why. Alliance filed a complaint against Diamond, their representatives, alleging fraud and deception. Okay, this is crazy. While Diamond is named as a defendant, most of the accusations are named at the people that they hired for this. Diamond's banker and their restructuring agents. So there's sort of three entities. It's all, collectively Diamond, but Diamond hired somebody to act as their banker and somebody to act as restructuring agents. And Alliance alleges, and seems to have the receipts, that they got intentionally misled when they were trying to bid on this. Actually, that everybody was misled. So AENT is Alliance Entertainment. They claim that these three entities purposely withheld the information that Wizards of the Coast, which is a huge tabletop gaming entity, Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, many others, had terminated their contract with Diamond's confusingly named Alliance Distribution. That was Diamond's gaming wing back on the end of 2024. And then they extended it quietly for a few months in order to help with the bankruptcy. But they weren't ever going to get them as a client if they bought all of Diamond. Now, you're like, well, why would that be a big deal? I mean, they're big, but that drastically changes the valuation of what they'd be paying for Diamond. Drastically. The estimate is that that's about 25% of the gaming business that Diamond had. 25, a quarter. And the reason that they were leaving was that over the last 4 years, Wizards of the Coast says that they'd lost about 8% of their sort of business that they had with Diamond, or Diamond's Alliance Distribution. They'd lost about 8% of their business over the last 4 years, while their other partners at the same period of time had increased their business. So they were like, no, we're done using you as a distributor. And that's 25% of Diamond's business. So their valuation, like what Alliance would have been paying for it, they were like, that's too high. It doesn't make sense. That's good. I like that. That's good. Oh my God, that would make for a great Legal Eagle episode. Oh my God, I wish I could have somebody like that break this down for me. But I'm trying to put this in terms that as I understand it. Keep in mind, I am not a lawyer, so I may not have everything right. But it seems like everything that Diamond was doing was to intimate, hey, these are the assets that you'd be buying this. So this is what it's worth. And, Alliance Entertainment's like, okay, we're going to be the biggest bidder. And then when they finally sort of were going to be able to sign the final paperwork, that's when they found out that this agreement with Wizards of the Coast was about to end, that it was just this real temporary thing just to pretend like that was part of the assets. Very, very disingenuous, if true. Very disingenuous. And I have no idea what this will do, because now, like, Diamond has new buyers, right? But they're still saddled with entities saying they're owed this much, they're owed that much, and now they're saddled with this lawsuit saying you intentionally misled us. That's gonna be worth something. That is just terrible. That is just terrible. Bankrupt doesn't mean that they have no money or no assets. What's the lawsuit going to reap? The money. Like, you get put, so they've still got assets, right? And when you're in bankruptcy, it gives you time to restructure and sort of settle for like maybe lesser amounts and like get some debt off the board, maybe get different loan terms or something from different banks. But you still have assets. When you win a lawsuit, that gets bumped to the top and everybody else falls to the bottom. So they're hoping to get, like, you know, their fair settlement. Not good. Not good at all. It looks so bad. It looks so bad for them when you read they have some specifics of what they say was done to mislead them. It's really deep in the weeds. I can't explain it too well without literally just reading the complaint, which I think would get kind of boring for us. You'd need a lawyer to explain it better, but it is crazy. It is crazy. So, yeah, exactly right. So the lawyers and agents would also be liable on some level, not just Diamond as an entity. The former publisher of Wizard magazine tried to artificially inflate the value of something. What? Diamond didn't publish Wizard magazine. Wizard magazine was Gareb Shamus and his family, not Diamond, unless I'm missing something. But I don't think Steve Jeppy was related to Wizard. Let's see. Free the magic and dragon from the dungeon, Wizard. Thank you. Thank you. Let's sum it up. Wizards of the Coast, the hottest company, would lose money if they worked with Diamond. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Wizards of the Coast were involved with Wizard magazine? I didn't know that. I don't know anything about that. Pretty crazy news. Pretty crazy. So that story could just... I couldn't even do an episode of Comic Tropes about it at this point. It's so unwieldy, you know? We've been talking about it for months here and there on this show, and I'm just trying to summarize things and giving it, like, you know, the briefest of recaps. But it is just silly bonkers. Silly bonkers. The movie. I'm attaching a camera here so that I can go over to talk about the comics that came out this week. Let me put myself like this. Gonna add a camera. Just give me a moment. Because a lot of comics came out this week. I picked up a good amount. Plus, it was free comic book day. Let's see. Yeah. So, let me put this aside for a minute and take a look at what came out. You know what? Let me break it up a couple different ways. There was, first of all, some comics that came out last week that I picked up that I had missed, and I wanted to acknowledge them. One was Martian Manhunter, and where's the other one? Oh, it's right here at the top. Out of Alcatraz. The reviews have been really, really strong for Absolute Martian Manhunter. And I did appreciate the artistry that Javier Rodriguez exhibited in the first issue. I was very impressed. But I'm trying to limit how much I'm buying. So I decided that I wasn't going to pick this up, but then everybody kept talking it up and telling me that I was missing out. So I did pick up the second issue. It's very different. If you know Martian Manhunter, what I'll say is that this is definitely not anything like the traditional Martian Manhunter. This is a very alien experience. It leans into the alienness of it, and it leans into John Jones, the human detective, being a different entity from the Martian Manhunter. And they've somehow sort of merged their consciousnesses. It leans mostly into the power of telepathy, but in a very different way. It's more like synesthesia, where you're like feeling all these different senses in different ways. It's trippy. It honestly, wait, big ad there. Actually, I'm going to zoom back out because this is just zoomed in. I'll zoom in like if there's some specific art to discuss. Okay, let me shift this over just a little. So I mostly like this for the art, to be honest. I don't think though that it's quite for me, even though like I understand why people like it. I really do. I really do understand. It hasn't quite hooked me enough that I feel the need to stay with it. I do admire the storytelling quite a bit. I think that Dennis Camp is unquestionably somebody that's going to continue to get bigger and bigger. I really admire his work on the Ultimates right now, and seeing him work on this is cool. He's doing some fascinating things with what you could do with like the idea of getting into somebody's mind, and how disorienting and strange that would probably be. But I also like how they represent things. You know, like it looks cartoony and silly sometimes, but the Martian Manhunter, or as he calls himself, the Martian Mind Blanker, he's just sort of like always sort of hovering around John in different places, and taking the, like, John sees him represented in everything from parking meters, to babies on the street, and it messes with him. And he just has to deal with a shooter, an active shooter in this, like just a guy walking down the street shooting. And what they try to do is by using like the mind, he's like remembering this guy's like childhood friend, and he's like, "Oh, I'm your childhood friend. Don't you remember me?" And the guy's like, "Wait, are you?" He's like, "I haven't seen you in like 20 years. So are you?" But it's enough to distract him. I like that idea. And you see like Martian Manhunter messing around, like looking in this guy's mind for memories and feelings and emotions that they could use to try to like reason with this guy. But it's better than like, say, Professor X just going, "I've mentally stopped you from shooting. Threat averted." I like that. There are limits to this power. I enjoy that. There's some rules being established for what the powers are and how they work. And I like that they're trying to do something that's playing on themes of the senses that we have and the memories that we have, and how much those memories influence us. So there's a lot to like about it. I like the coloring too, and that's also done by Rodriguez, just to be clear. Javier Rodriguez is doing all the art. So that's very intentional that he's using this sort of actually kind of limited color palette with these very vibrant, almost neon colors to represent things from the perspective of the Martian Manhunter, and then a more muted palette for the scenes that are taking place in the real world with Detective John Jones. There's a lot to recommend. I don't feel like it's hooked me enough for me to continue, but I do admire the artistry of it and the ambition, if that makes sense. I think that there are some people that would probably enjoy this more than me. So I hope I'm giving you enough information to go on to decide whether it's for you or not. But I mean, even this cover has some great design work. Like him using his, like, he's just got one eye and he's just sort of like blasting out like his energy. And that's where they've fit the logo into this nice little triangle on the top third. Some really nice bold shapes and bold colors. Quite a bit that's admirable here. I agree. Very nice art. This makes me wonder what an absolute shade the Changing Man would look and read like. I don't regret buying it. And then I'd meant to get this last week, but just it had been sold out at the first store I looked at, so I found it at another store. This is a great crime drama by writer Christopher Cantwell and artist Tyler Crook, who I admire quite a bit. And it's about the three people that in real life did escape from Alcatraz Island prison, and it's unknown if they actually made it to land. The official FBI investigation is that they're sure that they drowned. But what if we presumed that they didn't, and that they were on the run, and that they got out for a specific reason? There's a lady that is trying to take them to a job, but these two of them made it. They don't know that the third guy who fell off the boat actually also made it. So there's all these different factions in this. There's the police and the FBI. There's the two guys that made it and their mysterious contact that says she's got a job for them in exchange for helping them figure out how to get off the island. And there's the third man, who's actually the brother of one of these guys, who's searching for both of them. And it goes in some strange, cool directions. People are betraying each other and making, honestly, real life common sense mistakes. I noticed one really cool thing in this. Somebody that's here in the chat a bunch, this guy named Winston Gambro, who had sent in one of his indie comics. And Winston is credited as the designer here. It's got this obviously really great retro design to everything. So congrats to Winston on being involved in a comic like this. Let's see. I feel like Out of Alcatraz is one of 2025's best hidden gems of the year so far. I was really surprised by it. It's better than you'd think even. It's oh, well, that's a cool premise. The guys that escaped off Alcatraz Island. What's their story? But then it goes in cool directions because there's lots of different parties and they're all sort of slowly converging together, but also taking turns. They're trying to get to one place and then somebody else in the world intercepts them and it takes the story in a strange new direction. The art is incredible. It's so good. Oh, I know. Yeah. So Alcatraz, our president has said he wants to rebuild it and reopen it, which is going to be ridiculously expensive, folks. That prison is just crumbling. It's going to have to be raised and rebuilt. It makes no sense. It's going to be so expensive for us all. Let's see. It's more like an out of time piece with the Indiana Jones, James Bond, Mad Max stuff. It does feel out of time for sure, but I just like that these characters are all so complex. They have their, there's this guy Frank who's sort of the boss here of the criminals that escaped, and yet he still does this stupid thing. Instead of just waiting basically a day in a safe house, he just goes out to explore the world, and he's on wanted posters in every post office and grocery store in the area, and he goes out and about. It's so dumb, but you believe that somebody would do this. They just couldn't resist to just get out. Oh, great facial expressions. Oh, you were talking about Martian Manhunter? Anyway, this is really good. That was also last week. I I think I have to sort of, because I got so many comics this week, just sort of break it down with like more like recommend, not recommend in the middle, unless I've got something more deep to say. Recommend if it's been on a small hiatus, but Something is Killing the Children, issue 41 starts a new arc. It's about it's still set in the past like the last couple of arcs have been, but it's good. It's real good. I got the free comic book day for Amazing Spider-Man and Ultimate Universe, and I would say I don't recommend this. This is my least favorite type of free comic book day book, where they just have a few pages of what's coming out, and it's a tease, but it's not. It just wasn't fun. Conan Scourge of the Serpent for free comic book day was really good. Really good. While it teases some of what's coming up, you also feel like you're still getting a full comic with this story. The art's great. The story, the writing is really captivating. It's about like a 19-year-old teenage Conan who has wanderlust and is out of money, so he decides to be a thief. It's like his first job is being a thief. It's good. Fantastic Four, absolutely recommend. Has to do with trying to get the Thing back his powers, and to do that, they start visiting parallel realities to maybe be exposed to cosmic rays again. And it's a great mystery. It's a great sci-fi mystery. Totally recommend. Godzilla versus Spider-Man. Ironically, I don't really recommend this. And you guys know I love Godzilla. I like Spider-Man a lot. I think the art in this is pretty good by Nick Bradshaw. There's one or two things that confused me here or there, storytelling-wise, but it looks nice. I just didn't feel it went anywhere that interesting, to be honest. There was like something in here. I don't know if I can find it, but like there was just like a shot where somebody has two left hands. I don't know if I'll be able to find it again. I'm just looking real quick to see if I can. Like it matters that much. It looks good. You'd think it would be a more fun idea than it is. Like it's Venom. It's Venom taking over Godzilla. But I sort of feel like Joe Kelly was trying too hard to be funny, like with every single panel. And there's lots of like these like sort of editor notes like of stuff that supposedly happened. Oh yeah, here it is. So this is a black cat, and she's got two left hands. Her thumb's up here. You guys can't see that too well unless I zoomed in more. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I don't quite recommend it. Yeah, I'm glad that I'm not the only one to think that. It all depends on the writer. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, but yeah. Maybe it is thinking that like they accidentally sort of gave her a thumb when it wasn't meant to be a thumb. I don't know. 1,000 Comic Troopers versus Godzilla. Who you got? Oh, come on. It takes like 2 or 3 of you guys to beat Godzilla. 1,000? Easy. The final issue of TMNT Last Ronin 2 didn't really hit for me. Didn't quite build the characters up to be memorable enough. I liked them visually. I understood their personalities, and I was okay with that. But I still like didn't get a good sense of who they were. Like when I say personalities, I just mean in the broadest strokes. Like there's one that's like very cocky. There's one that's kind of dumb. There's one that's sensitive. It's about it. Void Rivals, I'll say I recommend. It's getting more connected to Transformers lore, and I'm totally okay with that. But it's also building the lore of this alien world and how it works and what their politics are. There's some cool stuff with one of the main characters getting a new ability to be connected to her planet on some level. It's cool. It's very cool. Planet Death has gotten a lot of publicity because Bad Idea says that they sold almost 1 million issues. As far as the story goes in this, I would say it seems like a fairly by-the-book sci-fi soldiers versus aliens type story, but the artwork is incredible. Let me show you something really cool. There's an establishing shot. Look at this establishing shot of all these sort of space marines. Like, and it just looks like they're like racks of meat going through a slaughterhouse, but that's just sort of the vague thing I got. But when you look at it, there's so much detail, like this crane operator sort of moving them forward. There's a lot of depth to this panel. Like the detail on this is incredible. TMNT versus crossover Naruto, surprisingly really good. Oh, that's cool to hear. I did skip that one, but thanks for the recommendation. I know, yeah, it's got that kind of a European hyper detailed art style, so I get that vibe. Really detailed art, really cool. I like that. It's only $1.99, and I heard some comic stores were even giving it out for free on Free Comic Book Day because it cost them so little to buy them. So I'd say art-wise, it's worth a buy, especially for $1.99. It is printed, just to be clear, on like a newsprint, which is interesting too. Yeah, the art is fantastic. Story seems kind of boilerplate sci-fi. I wouldn't say that there's anything about the story that hooked me as that original or exciting, but the art is really something dope. Man, Craig knocked it out of the park with this book. An incredible achievement, cartooning at its absolute finest. Nice to see you, Jim. Jimmy Jams. NEC, I had it for 99 cents. Let's see, Craig. Who's Craig? I don't see a guy named Craig on this. I'm so confused, Jim. Oh, hey, look, I was looking at like the variant covers and there's some really cool ones in here, including Jim Rugg. That's really cool. I didn't look at that until now. Was Dinesh the guy that was just on West Coast Avengers? I think Dave just had Dinesh on. But I don't know who Craig is. I'm so confused. Anyway. Just doing quick recommends still. I recommend Radiant Black. It's a fun sort of one side of a crossover, basically, where Radiant Black goes up against a supernatural enemy that normally deals with Rogue Sun down in New Orleans. So, yeah, Radiant Black goes down there. But we don't really get a full battle with them. I guess that takes place in Rogue Sun. We just sort of get the beginning and end. Oh, you're referring to Ginseng Roots. I'm going to talk about that, Jim. I'm going to talk about that because yes, excuse me. I do have it in my pile. Haven't talked about it yet. Thank you. My favorite Fortnite loading screens artist. Yep, Jim has a new one up. One I wanted to give a shot to, but I didn't really enjoy too much was The Power Company. First of all, I got this because Kerry Randolph drew some of the pages, and I'm a big fan of Kerry. I think he's done some fantastic stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, Black Lightning, Batman. Let's give this a shot. It's written by Brian Edward Hill, and I usually like his stuff. I liked his Blade run quite a bit. I thought that was underrated. I liked a lot of what he was doing on Ultimate Black Panther, but I felt that there was just too much lore, and it was sort of just like overwhelming me. For this, though, here's the thing. They use like 5 or 6 different artists, and so like the art style keeps changing, which I wasn't always too into. And like some of the art would like flat out confuse me. Like this one of like Batman jumping But then like over here, she's like looking down at him. I was like, that just doesn't read well. This should be her like more like up here looking down on Batman. This should all be one panel or something like that. But this is two panels, but it doesn't read that way. It looks like he's jumping down. There's no like clear panel break really. And then she's looking down. It just doesn't track well storytelling wise when you use the Z pattern. I didn't love it. And then the story confused me because I didn't know, and I guess I'm the idiot for this, but I didn't know that there's a second Black Batman. I didn't know that. So I'm reading this and I'm like, and I get introduced to Batman. And I'm like, oh, he's clearly a black guy. He's colored the same as these other black superheroes. He's like a black, but he's just Batman. There's nothing that I'm told about who he is outside of being Batman. So then I had to look it up, and apparently Jace Fox, the son of Lucius Fox, also operates as Batman. And I didn't know that. So this story didn't give it to me. It just didn't hook me. All right. Down to just a few things that I strongly recommend. 4 books, okay? I've got 4 books that I strongly recommend. These are all going to be in the running for book of the week because I like them all, okay? Ginseng Roots I'll talk about. I'll talk about Ultimate Spider-Man. I'll talk about the Energon Universe Special. And I'll talk about Feral. And just because it's on the top, let me talk briefly about Feral. So issue 12, we're starting a new storyline here too. Batman 2 is the New York Batman. I figured that out, but I had to like go to Wikipedia to figure that out. Thank you for the super chat though. He probably did, but I don't read everything, especially by Marvel and DC. So I was just out of the loop on that one. I had no idea that was the current continuity. By the way, the next issue of Feral is issue 13, so they've got a variant cover that's a Friday the 13th homage. And it made me think, like, Jim, if you're there still, we should definitely do another like look at some Friday the 13th movies at some point on Trash Movie Bonanza, our show that's on this channel. Maybe we should even do like a ranking someday of like different series, like an episode about, you know, watch all the Final Destinations or watch all the Saw movies and rank them, something like that. I don't know. But I'd love to talk about Friday the 13th again. So I need to turn in my Batman fanboy card. That's fine. Turned in. Feral's great, folks. There are so many characters now, and they're all really different and cool. We've got, you know, Ghost and Eloise and the kittens. Now we're meeting 2 new characters. Mr. Lucky, which is like this sort of tomcat guy, and a dog. We haven't had a dog as one of the main characters. Now the cats can't speak his language, okay? But this cat grew up with him since he was a puppy, so they do sort of communicate, and they can communicate through him. And this dog is actually like very friendly and defensive of these cats. Their idea to get to safety right now is there's a pet store. But they're in a world where, you know, there's basically zombies. Okay, basically zombies, as in, you know, rabid, super rabid versions of like foxes and raccoons and things like that that are outside. And they're also surrounding the pet store. But if they could get there, they think of that as safety. So after a little while, I go, oh, this is basically going to be Feral moving into the Dawn of the Dead side of its story, where, you know, if you've seen either Dawn of the Dead or the Dawn of the Dead remake, it's about survivors in a world full of zombies that get to a mall and barricade it, and they're safe inside the mall. And these cats want to get into a pet store. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like that it just feels very organic, but they can't figure out how to get in there yet. It is really cool that they speak different languages. I love it. I don't know if we'd want to watch an Uwe Boll movie. We mostly like to look at stuff that we like, even if it's like kind of bad. It's very cool. It's such a great idea of like all these different characters. And, you know, like we've got different ages and different backgrounds. Like some of these that we started with are house cats, but now we're getting like a cat who has grown up more outdoors and with, you know, a dog. And we've got a mom cat and like how protective she is of her kids. We've got this cat who was raised by a hoarder and like has a very warped perspective on like trusting humans, even though they don't treat them that well. And we've got this one cat, Ghost, is deaf. There are pets that go deaf. And so she, even though she's like an adult cat, she mostly gets along with the kittens more because she doesn't have to talk as much and she can just sort of like, you know, react to them. One of the cats, Patch, like had been a naughty kitten and his owners declawed him. So he can't actually climb stuff very well. And he certainly can't defend himself very well against these rabid animals. So we've got like a wide variety of characters at this point with different personalities. Elsie is just like, we are not built to be in constant crisis mode. We're built to like have like long periods of relaxing. Like this is not what we are built for. This is really hard to figure out. I love it. I love it. So here's the best part. No, don't declaw your cats. It's just the wrong thing. Like if you care about them, just put like little caps on their nails or something, or sticky tape where they're clawing. There are things to do. So anyway, oh, I love the art in this. Here's what surprised me that like actually made me gasp, folks. I turned to the back, and I was not expecting this. This was a really pleasant surprise for me since I talk this book up all the time. It's got a quote by me recommending it. So that was very flattering in a way. I know it's weird to be flattered by like I'm the one promoting it, but I don't know. It's nice. It's nice that my opinion carries enough weight that they thought that meant something. That's very nice. And I think that they got a good quote, and I think it's from this show. Pretty sure that I remember seeing it on this show. So that's nice. Good book. Very good book. I am a nerd for Transformers and G.I. Joe. But I also think that like the last 2 years, Skybound has given us basically the best version of a free comic book day book because it's an actual full comic book. It's not just a tease of a few pages of this and a few pages of that. It's a full story. And in this, we've got like G.I. Joe finally sort of getting introduced to the world of Transformers. They've had Energon, and there's been like some hints to different stuff in the past. But no, now Clutch, who's the driver of the team, has encountered Hound, who transforms into an actual army vehicle canonically. And Hound has been like the scout. He's been scouting out humanity and stuff. So, yes, you do got to buy it, Jeannie. I'm an influencer. So that's fun. But Hound doesn't trust, Clutch doesn't trust Hound, and he like tosses a bomb and he gets Hound glitched in his mid-transformation and then realizes he's not a threat. So he has to get help, right? He's going to help Hound. Who does he go to get help? Clutch goes to his friend, Matt Tracker. Who here recognizes Matt Tracker? This was unexpected. So the Energon universe has Void Rivals, which is Robert's sort of original sci-fi characters in this universe. We've got Transformers, and we've got G.I. Joe, 2 different licenses. Yeah, now we just had this tiny cameo that introduces another licensed property that makes sense for this world, Mask. That's right, from Mask. I did not expect any of that, but how cool does that make sense? For Matt Tracker is who he goes to for help, sort of like because he's good at building stuff, okay? And he's able to sort of help heal Hound. But that's such a cool idea because that like Mask is all about sort of these they're not military, but they're heroes, and they have vehicles that can transform. but they're not intelligent. They're not robots. They'll change from like a car to a plane, or a motorcycle to a plane, or a boat to a plane. No, they change into other things too. I just think this makes a lot of sense to sort of introduce it, at least on this level, as a supporting element. And if it were to be another book, it really fits within this world that they've created. I really think that that's really cool. And you get an original Daniel Warren Johnson story in this about jazz that he drew as well as wrote. He's been only writing Transformers and writing a bunch of comics like The Moon is Following Us, for instance, stuff like that. But he drew this. We get some Daniel Warren Johnson art, a quick jazz story, and we get like a Void Rivals story that ends with them teasing the Quintesson War. So I thought that this, I mean, they're going to sell this, just to be clear, as a regular issue pretty soon, but it was also a free comic book day book, and I think it was great. Great art, cool story. I'm really excited. I think it was such a good book. Ultimate Spider-Man has tricked us, folks. Stuff that we saw in the past isn't necessarily true, because there's a villain in this book that's the master of illusions, Mysterio. I'm not going to tell you all about what Mysterio has done, but I will tell you this. Mysterio in this is 5 different people that share his supernatural powers, and one of them is Gwen Stacy. And this is like a secret cabal that has a belief in the conspiracy theory that their world was once very different and somebody came in and changed it, which is actually what's happened in the Ultimate Universe. The supervillain Maker went back in time and changed the world to fashion it in his image. So in this, the group of people that operate as Mysterio, they each sort of trade the power every several days. Mysterio is trying to uncover the secret history. They believe in a conspiracy theory that we, the reader, know is actually accurate. So it's a great recontextualizing of who Gwen Stacy is in this book. And we get flashbacks to her past and sort of understand her beliefs. By the way, the person that released a book about this conspiracy theory is Dr. Jericho Drum in the mainstream comics. He's, on the level of Doctor Strange, Brother Voodoo. So anyway, there is also a huge twist towards the end, but it's a really cool reimagining of what Mysterio can be, and a great use of Mysterio within the Ultimate Universe. It's a blast. It's a blast. That moment earlier in the series when Mysterio adjusts their height stuck with me. Cute, and it works. Pretty clever. No, the Illuminati is mainstream. 616. Maybe Mysterios are in possession of the Eye of Agamotto? I don't know. That's an interesting idea. They're in possession of something. But I don't know what it is. It's a fun book. But look, I'll just cut to the chase with this quick review. Ginseng Roots is a compilation of 12 issues that Craig Thompson has been self-publishing over the last few years. Same title, Ginseng Roots. But that means that this is, about 450 pages. Not quite. 450. It's huge. It's huge. And this is my pick of the week. No question. Ginseng Roots. Let me do it like this in case somebody wants to clip it. My pick for book of the week is absolutely Ginseng Roots by Craig Thompson. This is a return to books like Blankets, his second big publication. I consider myself lucky enough to have discovered Craig Thompson's work with his first big book, Goodbye Chunky Rice, a book that made me cry. Blankets was such an important book for me that I would just buy extra copies of that and give that to people that I wanted to get into comics, because I just thought it was a great entry point into understanding comics. I am a big fan of autobiographical books, and like Blankets, this is an autobiographical book. This is about Craig Thompson's childhood in Wisconsin, where he and his younger brother and sister had to gather ginseng. They worked on a farm and they worked hard as kids. But it also talks about family. It talks a bit more about stuff that he covered in Blankets, like sort of moving away from, growing up fundamentalist. But it also talks about American and Chinese history, what ginseng is, like what it does for people, how it was discovered, how it's harvested. So this is a book about farming. In a lot of ways, it's about all the different aspects that relate to farming, from the work to the distribution, the valuation, the conditions that it takes, what the finished product does. The artwork is absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Jeannie, if you loved Blankets, I would say that this is probably the closest thing Craig Thompson has done since then to Blankets, because it's, again, an autobiography. It isn't quite the same intimacy, like focused so intensely on him and his first romances. It's a little bit more about something broader, about culture, and about our food and our history and things like that. Like, you can see it, I'm just jumping to pages, and they'll have like pages of history. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I absolutely love his art style. And beyond obviously being sort of a serious topic, there are definitely lots of funny little moments worked in here and there. So early on, when Craig is still talking about like what ginseng is, there will sometimes be tiny little ginseng root men with little jokes here. Like, this is like Craig Thompson as a kid talking about his sister and stuff, and then this little ginseng root man is just saying, pretty articulate for a 1.5-year-old. Little things like that. There's just little ginseng men everywhere. Ginseng's a really important root vegetable / herb, especially in Eastern medicine. But we use it here to flavor things and to, I don't know, power up medicines and stuff. It's great. I have it and I love it. Definitely be picking that up. Gorgeous book. Look at that art. Oh yeah, there's lots of, see, since he grew up kind of like a fundamentalist Christian, Craig and his brother and sister couldn't like watch TV and stuff, but his parents didn't really know to check on comic books. So Craig and his brother would work hard in the farms for like $1 an hour, but they'd go like, oh, $1 is enough to buy a whole new comic book. And they'd each buy comics. I'm so excited for the finale of that. Yes. Yep. He talks in this about loving books like Gru and The Tick and Ninja Turtles. Let's see. Jim says, when I was living in Portland, I got to see most of the original art for this. Craig is an absolute master. Hot damn. Sometimes I look at, his really detailed pages. He draws in a cartoony but detailed style. And when there's like lots of depth and lots of characters like this, it reminds me of artists like Sergio Aragonés on books like Gru, where it's cartoony but detailed. It's just beautiful. It's really, really nice. And he's so consistent, and his storytelling just flows. I've just always been a fan of him. I met him a couple times, but it was back like around like 2011, 2012 when he was doing Blankets signings. And I would say that like Blankets might hit on an emotional level a little harder, because it's about like heartbreak and stuff like that. And the first times you're experiencing that. But this is still about family and farming and hard work. And it gets into a lot of different facets that connect there. I think it's very interesting to get deep into the weeds, not to, push a metaphor too hard, but to get deep into the weeds with the way anything works. I would find it just as interesting to read a biography on somebody that worked in any sort of a smaller culture that you don't always experience, like, grew up being a carnival employee, or, is part of a motorcycle gang, or, grew up wanting to be a politician even, and how that works. But like the actual minutia of day to day, how it works. It's really cool. I know it serves the story so well. Just a little bit of red tones here and there, but it adds just enough depth and focus that it really, really works. Family, family, family. I grew up on a farm, and buddy, let me tell you, farming sucks real bad. They talk about that. They talk about, though, too, how sometimes they were proud of the work that they were doing, and there were days that could be easier and you felt kind of good about it, but they also talk about how hard it is. Anyway, no question, my pick for Book of the Week, Ginseng Roots. Strongly recommend it. Just came out this week in trade pay or hardcover. $35. I'm sure that it's probably cheaper on some place like Amazon or something, but strongly recommended, folks. This really shows you what you can do with comics, storytelling wise, topic wise. Today happens to be Revenge of the Fifth, so I loosely mapped out some outlines and a few details of a Darth Vader here, and I thought that I'd give a shot at doing some deep black inks to like really push the contrast. I don't know if I'll go quite Mignola with it, but just trying to have some fun, and then talk in a non-spoilery way while I draw about the various TV shows and movies that have come out this week, as well as anything else. You know what? Before I even get to that, though, it just occurs to me. We just had Free Comic Book Day, and I sort of skipped talking about this. Free Comic Book Day, I was working, so I didn't get to participate. Unfortunately. But I love Free Comic Book Day. I think it's a very good idea. I think I've seen how it can bring in new readers. It is technically owned by Diamond. Yeah. Diamond did not come up with the idea, but did help coordinate it for its first year in 2002. They registered that Free Comic Book Day logo. And so when I say in the thumbnail, could we have just experienced our last Free Comic Book Day? That is what I'm talking about, is that in the news this week, we talked about how Diamond got bought by a new company and is going through a lawsuit by the person, or the entity, I should say, that almost bought them. And it makes you wonder, is this, as an event, something that the new ownership would continue? Is this something that is bigger than just Diamond? And would other companies still put on the event even without Diamond behind it? Would they have to call it something different, though, on a legal level? I don't know. I'd be curious to hear some of y'all's opinions there, whether you think that having that name registered really means anything, or if it's definitely going to continue even if it got named something different. Is it something that comic book stores would somehow try to put on where they just had sales or something? You can't copyright like the name or anything of it, but like they've trademarked or registered, I should say, the name. They do own the website and the name. So somebody else could put on a similar event. There's nothing that would stop them from that, but it would be potentially starting from the ground up. That's the trick. tricky. I really don't know what format it would take after this. It would really bum me out to think that that could sort of be the end of Free Comic Book Day without like any sort of official word or announcement. But I think it's, unlikely, but possible. I do think it's possible. I don't think that that's, being a worry wart, as all the kids love to say. Such a hip term. Just call it Day of Free Comics. And that would be fine. Free sequential publication day. But who would distribution is a key part of this to making it work. And Diamond mostly ate that cost to make it possible. Would a new owner see that as a good investment? Or would that be something where they go, look, I see how it's good for the industry, but it's too big an expense for us right now. Could it go on hiatus? Could it go on hiatus and come back? I don't know. Yeah, Lunar and Penguin are huge into the distribution channels right now and obviously contributed to making this happen. I sincerely wonder if it will happen next year. I would love to hear an update on that. That would be the thing I'm most interested in as far as distribution news goes, is does anybody say, yes, we fully have the intention to continue Free Comic Book Day? And let me ask this. Do you enjoy Free Comic Book Day? Do you go to a comic book store? Do you participate? Do you think it's anything that helps the industry? I think it is good for the industry. When I go or when I follow the social media for the stores that I know, it seems like they definitely get a lot of extra foot traffic, a lot, and therefore more sales. So I think it probably does help the comic book stores. I really do believe that. I would absolutely participate if I wasn't working, and participate just means go and sort of see what's going on. It doesn't mean that I feel that I needed to take a free comic, because if it came down to whether I got, say, the Energon Universe special or a little kid going to the store could get the last copy, I'd absolutely just let him get that copy, and I would figure out some other way to, buy a used copy or something like that. Because I think that the idea behind it is to encourage new readers, and I want to stand behind that. My local store seems to have a lot of kids come in when they do it, so it seems to be working. And it seems like there were a lot of kids' comics made for this. It's meant for casuals and kids, and I think that that's a good idea. But most of the stores I see do have like giveaways and stuff like that, or sales. Just, yeah, not too many returned. Interesting. That's something I always wondered about. Yeah, like how many people got into a comic and then stayed with it. I've always wondered that. I'm pushing too much with my pen instead of pulling. It's always been my bad habit for drawing. You get more control if you can pull your line, hold your breath, or control your breathing. It's always been my bad habit. Well, anyway, I think Free Comic Book Day is a good idea for promoting comics to new readers, and I hope it does continue. I have some doubts about it for next year, and I would love to have those doubts assuaged, but I don't expect it to happen anytime soon right now. Good to hear that there are lines at a bunch of these. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm proud of the episode about the Sentry. Oh, fun. Oh my God. The Red Letter Media episode describing Darth Vader's suit is one of the funniest episodes they've ever put out. And all it is reading all these extra extended universe details about Darth Vader's suit. It gets so silly. It gets so funny. What else did I want to talk about? Thunderbolts came out and I enjoyed it. I said that earlier, I guess. I thought it was a pretty darn strong Marvel movie. It doesn't specifically adapt any one comic book run or story, but I found it really good. I do recommend it. I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking, but it was fun. It was satisfying, and I liked that there weren't any bad, like weird CG special effects. I liked that the ending wasn't sort of a cliche flying around shooting space lasers type of affair. They did something different with it, so I liked a lot of what they did with it. I do ultimately recommend it. It's a slightly different experience for a superhero movie. Different enough that I was like, yeah, it's worth seeing. What else? Andor and Last of Us both continue to be exceptional shows, especially Andor. That one really knocks me out of the park. Eternaut is good. Eternaut on Netflix is really strong. We're spoiled right now for good stuff. No, because I don't even know how you would implement something like that. Like, how do you determine what movie gets hit with a tariff? It just doesn't make any sense to me right now. So I didn't talk about that news because I don't get it. Top 3 after Endgame? Yeah, I think that's fair. Asterix came out? I didn't know that there was a new Asterix TV show or movie. I didn't know that. Andor is so damn good. Like, it makes me feel like most of the Star Wars I've been getting has been like dog kibble, and now I'm getting steak. Something like that. That's too harsh, but it's really, really good show. I really appreciate it. It's not for everybody, I suppose. I do think at its core, Star Wars should probably be adventure, but I'm glad that they're making this. I think it's, I think it helps explain how this world could work, and I like it a lot. I think it's fascinating. I think it's relevant. Yeah, it's a really good show. I need to decide on some sort of a movie for Jim and I to watch. I haven't suggested anything. I've been busy and I feel bad. I've got a bunch of ideas, but I want it to be something that we both enjoy. Trying to think what else is new. The next comic tropes that I'm making, I have a Joe Kubert episode pretty far along, but I think I'm going to just give myself something a little lighter. Oh, I didn't realize I left that up the whole time. Sorry. I want to do a sort of a funny-ish episode, and I found some really cool, weird DC history that I really want to just like prioritize, just to give myself something sort of light, and then I'll do something a little more serious. Vincent Price does have a lot of good ones. Yep, I agree. Sonny Chiba. Sonny Chiba's awesome. Yeah, that's true. I saw that a bunch of it was actually even filmed there in Malaysia. I forget the name of that building that you have in Kuala Lumpur, but the second tallest building in the world. Very, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, DC does have some weird stuff, and a bunch of it is lumped together in its history. I'm excited. No, I haven't seen either of those. I haven't seen all the cartoon stuff in Star Wars. I haven't seen hardly any of it, to be honest. Jim Smith passed away. Who's Jim Smith? I'm sorry. It's not coming to me. That name isn't ringing a bell. Who's Jim Smith? Jim. I feel bad, but it's just not coming to me. I think Darth Vader has a great costume. It's amazing how detailed it was right from the beginning. Spumco creator, Jim Smith. We did talk about Butch Guice tonight. Yeah, we talked about him a lot. What else came out that I am not thinking of in terms of comics? Is there anything? I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I guess what do you call it? The biggest would be, or the most notable for comics would be Thunderbolts, but Eternaut is the sort of under the radar one that I recommend to people. Lot to like about that. Lot to like about it. I need to discover some new music. That's what I need to do. Listening to too much of the same stuff. It's like I like it, but you got to discover new things. Bitterroot has been a lovely discovery. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, Bitterroot's great. I picked up the second trade this week. Yeah, they should have definitely reprinted Eternaut before the show came out, like so that they could have it ready to go. Really strange. I agree with you. Yeah, strange decision. Let's see how much I want to use for. I want to use a lot of black. I want to make this black radiant. See what I did there? You know what I really would love to do, aside from like actually pushing myself and making some of my own comic books, like for a campaign. I would love to do some covers for some of the IDW stuff. They've got Godzilla and Ninja Turtles. I feel like that would be an awesome challenge to get to draw some of my favorite characters, even once for like on a professional level. That would be the kind of thing that would be on a bucket list. Like I go, okay, I left something behind that someday somebody will find, in a bin or something. I did something that will be remembered. That would be cool. Billy Strings. Yeah, I understand what you mean there. Let's see. Billy Strings, got it. Huh. I'll pull it up and listen. South of Midnight? No, I don't know that. Really? Does sound up my alley. I have so little time for playing games, though. Like, I wish. Kitaro. Have I ever listened to Kitaro? Don't know it. Amy Irving's mother in real life and in Carrie. Priscilla Pointer. 100? Jeez, I don't know if I even want to get that up to 100, That's such an astronomically high number in a way. I don't know. I don't want to die, but I just also go like, well, what will my body and mind be like at that age, right? Like realistically. But that just makes me sad because I'm like, well, how many professional years do I even have on this planet before I'm just a shell of myself? I don't know. I don't know. I'm feeling my age these days, and I don't want to. I don't want to feel old. Whoa, a super chat. Is it time for DC to come out with a new spy-centered series? Checkmate versus Argus versus Stormwatch versus Cobra. Put Tom King on it. That's not a bad idea to put Tom King on a spy series. Boy, yeah, having all those groups after each other. That's an interesting idea. Have a bunch of different spy agencies or terrorist groups going after the same thing. That could be sort of a fun event that like takes place in a superhero world, but doesn't necessarily have to focus on superheroes. It's a fun idea. I like it, Mian Yan. There's a lot of ways you could go there. Let's see. Kitaro Japanese musician mixes traditional Japanese music, Nihongo no Ongaku, and synth, sort of a new age vibe. Very cool and chilled. Does sound up my alley. I mean, he only just wrapped up Spider-Man, so he's probably doing stuff on TV or movies. You're kind. Just having fun, laying down lots of blacks. What else? You'd be amazed at some of the 100-year-old patients I get to see. They look amazing and usually are reading the paper and keeping up with everything around them. If I could be that, I'm down. If I could be that, I'm down. Jack Katz passed away. That's too bad. That's too bad. Not super familiar, though. Otherwise, I would have said something more. What pen are you using tonight? It's a fun question. Lately, I discovered these Mangaka flexible fine brush pens. And I think, yeah, they're by Kuretake. I like them. This one's pretty thick, though. The fine one is still pretty thick, just to be clear. Yeah. Oh, I finished inking pretty much my Godzilla piece that I was working on. I worked on it during a lunch break, and I guess I could technically noodle away at the houses down here, maybe a little more smoke or a little more tail detail, but I kind of was like, okay, at that point, cool, but I'm not finishing this for anything. This was more just to practice on detail and stuff like that, and I had fun. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Just thought I'd share that real quick. June Lockhart turns 100. Whoa. Wait, is he that old? Dick Van Dyke is still pretty sharp. I didn't know he was that old. That's an interesting question. How old do you all think I am? I mean, you kind of seen where my area of expertise in comics lands, so maybe that gives it away. What is? This is Raw Worthy. Thank you're kind. Such a noodler. That's me. Yeah, just pecking away at the details and stuff. I can't help it. Like, could still peck away at all this stuff, but let's see. 46, 50, 50, 50, 45, 48, 39. Not 100. 45. Age is just a number. 26. Jim Mafood is approaching. No, he's not. He's eternally 30. Depends on the continuity. 24. I'm 51, so close to that. 50 only because I think you're a bit older than me. Mid to late 30s. I'm 49. I'm 49. So that makes me like, I don't feel old, but also I go like, okay, but say I put out like a crowdfunded campaign this year. Book comes out when I'm like, like 50. Even if it like did incredible and, I got some opportunities to write a few more comics, I'm not going to be doing more than like one a year at absolute best. That means I'm not going to be putting out too many things. Yeah. So, and it makes me like, go like, well, I love doing YouTube, but at a certain point, am I going to just sort of like look so old that people are like, I don't want to listen to this old freak. I guess I could always pivot to just doing voiceover or doing like travel vlogs or something like that. But yeah, I'm getting up there, I guess. Just a baby. Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, makes me like worry about age. I hate the idea of getting older. Hate it. But what can you do? You got to accept it too. Yeah, I know exactly. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. I don't think I know Tales from my spinner rack, but I really respect hearing that. All right. That said, I think that people age better now than they did when I was growing up because, like, right now there'll be like an actor who's like 30 and they still look like, really, really young. But back when I was a kid, we'd have like pro wrestlers like Hulk Hogan that were 30 and he looked like he was like 58. It's just crazy. Gen X was the coolest, Jeannie, but I feel like most of the Gen X population has like changed so much from like when we were, in teens into 20s. Like so many Gen X people have become like really, really conservative versus like being sort of like, just sort of like counterculture and into like grunge and indie and stuff like that. It just doesn't feel like that anymore. I've got to stay healthy for Jack. He hasn't meowed tonight because I fed him right before I did the show. Right before I did the show, I was like, I'm going to feed this guy so that he maybe doesn't yell. Well, anyway, thanks for not making me feel too bad about how old I am. It's not my favorite thing. Oh, my wife said I should tell this story of like, share this story of what I did at work the other day. So I'll end on something that's hopefully a little funny, okay? That's all I'm going to get to today for Revenge of the Fifth. So that's that. So, in real life, I definitely joke around a lot. And sometimes my version of joking around is I'll be sarcastic. But if somebody believes what I'm saying when I'm sarcastic, I can't help but escalate it and take it further until it's like absurd. And they finally go, oh, you're messing with me. Yes, I was messing with you. So I changed my job at work and I work sort of in the business office instead of sales. And all that means is that like I'm not going to use any names or exactly where I work. That's nobody's business. But I'm in there, and we have a view of the outside where it has started to rain, and that's only notable because it was still like one of those days where it's sort of sunny outside, but it was raining kind of heavily all of a sudden. And so the people in the office are just sort of talking. Oh, hey, it's raining. Oh yeah, look at that. I didn't expect that. Or, and so it's raining, and I'm trying to think of who said what first, but I go, well, we better close all the sunroofs. And I've got a coworker that I'll just call Betty for this. And Betty goes, what do you mean? Because we've got cars on the lot. And I go, oh, in the summer, when I was in sales, we'd open all of the sunroofs so that the cars aren't hot for the customers. Really? Oh, yeah. You don't want them hot. So, it's our responsibility to close the sunroofs whenever it starts raining. So Betty gets on the radio and calls a sales manager and just like without questioning it, just like instantly, just gets on the radio and goes, the walkie-talkie thing goes, it's raining. The sales manager goes, yeah. She goes, you need to close all the sunroofs. Manager goes, huh? And at this point, everybody in the office is laughing because they know that I've just made up something ridiculous. And this Betty just finally is like, Chris, are you messing with me? I was like, yeah. I like the idea that like it starts to rain and our responsibility is now to run around the lot, close it, like, finding like, I'm just ballparking. There must be at least 50 cars, if not more, that have sunroofs. The idea of having to quickly close all of those as it rains. Everybody, including the manager, was laughing. And so now people are going by and saying things like, hey, it's raining, or have you closed the sunroofs? I feel a little bad, but I was just trying to have fun, and I don't think she's mad at me or anything. I said it very deadpan, to be fair. I was very, very deadpan with my delivery. So yeah, I don't blame anyone for believing that. I think I'm going to call it a show there. I do think that there's a decent chance I could get an episode out as soon as this coming weekend, but I always sort of say that, and then it ends up being a few more days. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be 2 weeks or, a week and a half, something like that. But I'm working on something that I consider more of a funny part of DC history. I'm excited to do that. And then I might even carve out some time for myself to just do some creative writing. I feel like that would be creatively fulfilling. I mean, I doodle around like this and I like that, but I love writing too. And I never take the time to do that. Bam, 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 bam. Just to be clear, that is definitely not her real name or anything close to that. Yeah, I got to let out any trap birds. I've got a lot of gravitas. A lot of gravitas. Vanessa. Probably. Yeah, the revenge will be like a bullet in the back of my head, probably. I just made a villain's origin story. I might have. So anyway, I had a good time talking with everybody tonight. The big thing to come out of this is like, I am very curious to see what happens with Free Comic Book Day. And my recommendation for a book to pick up is definitely Ginseng Roots. Although, if you go by quotes, apparently this Chris Piers of Comic Tropes says Farrell is pretty good, if you want to trust him. So anyway, yes, Vanessa, close the sunroof. I had a great time. I will see you all very soon. Hopefully you'll see me even sooner with another episode on Comic Tropes. But until then, your marching orders, be surprised by this, are to keep reading comics. Double salute. Thanks much. Remember to tip your waitress. Bye.